Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday Market Update. It is May 6, 2021. I'm Mike Vincent. We're here with Kaylee Nix. How are you?
Good. We are marking our last day of Midday Market Update today. So little bittersweet, little sad, but also excited for what's coming up on FreightWaves TV, where we're going with what's happening next, and also excited for our show that we've got going on today.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a great show. This is live interactive. It was twice weekly.
Was twice weekly. Last one. Got to make it a good one. But
yeah, we will. We will make it. We got some great guests. We got Eric Kulisch on, FreightWaves Air Cargo editor. It's going to be on, and then we have Bryan Schreiber, who's manager of air cargo and business development at the Rickenbacker Airport in Columbus, Ohio, Columbus Regional Airport Authority, along with Zach Strickland, and we got
Anthony
Stone Cold
Smith
Nick
and-
Austin, our weatherman and weather person, meteorologist.
Meteorologist.
Yeah.
We're talking all air cargo all the time on this episode.
We are.
So.
We are. Live, interactive, LinkedIn, Facebook. Get your comments in.
Get your comments
You've
in.
got
I've got
your
it
modem
pulled
running.
up. We're ready to go.
All right. So we're ready to go. Get your questions and comments in, and we'll get to them as best we possibly can. Should we check in with weather and see what?
Let's figure out what's going on across the country. It's pretty quiet here
It
in
is.
Freight Alley. Nice little bluebird day. But Nick, what's the case across the rest of the world?
You bet. It's one of those kind of rare, really quiet days where there's not much going on anywhere across the country, especially as far as any major severe weather like we've seen across the South the past few days. No major late season winter storms popping up out in the Rockies or anything like that. Could see a little bit of mountain snow in the Cascades tomorrow, but that's about it. So, but we do have one area of the country that needs the rain. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Some elevated fire danger in that particular region. So let's go to the Sonar Critical Events map. The radar's popped up there for you to see as well. And we do have some rain moving through parts of the Great Lakes and the Midwest. But again, nothing major. So we're talking about the focus here on the upper Midwest, some of the northern plains, pretty much across most of North Dakota and into rural parts of central and northern Minnesota. All these areas shaded in yellow here are under red flag warning. So we have drought conditions in this part of the country as well as many others. But also very, very low humidities the rest of today, 20% or less. So the air is dry. The ground is very dry. Just unfortunately really good kindling out there for wildfires. We have several wildfires across these areas already, but new ones could pop up because of these extremely dry conditions. And on top of that, the red flag warnings are out because winds are going to be gusting across this region up to about 40 miles per hour or so. So this will impact some areas of Interstate 40 and 29 through this region. Luckily, the winds will kind of slacken off later tonight and tomorrow, so the fire danger won't be as elevated, but it's still going to be really dry. Not a lot of rain coming back to this part of the country over the next few days. Not enough to really make a big dent in the drought. Same case for the Southwest and the Four Corners region, which have many areas that are under extreme and exceptional drought right now. So the main takeaway from this is that if with the winds picking up, that could spread smoke from existing fires or any new fires across some highways. So it's possible it could pose a little bit of a threat to some drivers out there if the smoke just gets a little bit too thick in some of these areas. There may end up being some temporary road closures here and there. But drivers can do their part in helping not start new fires by not dragging chains and not parking in grassy areas. Just a couple of easy things to remember just to keep this situation as much under control as possible. Most of the fires across that region are under control right now, but with the winds picking up, you know, that can change in just an instant.
Not even into summer yet. We're already talking wildfire problems, so it could be a bad year.
Drought situation, right?
And in the Southeast, it seems like we have nothing to worry about drought. We're just dying under all this rain.
Yeah, we're definitely not dry, are we?
No, not in the least.
That's good though. That's good though. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, we'll hear more from Nick coming up at the end of the show.
We definitely will. We'll see if things are going to change in the forecast in the near future and where there might be some weather. But for right now, wildfires, look out for the smoke and the visibility and those gusting winds, that type of stuff, right?
I'm ready to move on. I'm like, let's get to headlines already.
Let's do it. Let's move on to the headlines. Now, this is an interesting one here for Grace Sharkey, who's awesome, by the way. She's unbelievable. But talking about how a hot market creating a war for freight brokerage and talent, right? And just She talked about it on Monday. Amit, how do you pronounce this? Maratra?
Maratra, I think.
Maratra, an analyst at Deutsche Bank, stated that due to customer demand, low inventory levels, housing demand, federal stimulus, all these things, the current market constraints on trucking and international container capacity are likely to continue all the way through 2023, right?
Tell us something we didn't know.
Yeah, well, we keep moving that line further and further out, right? People keep pushing it. He's ultra bullish, obviously. Shippers are moving to a stronger for longer pricing cycle, he said, pointing to many retailers increasing their transportation costs. Projections and retailers already beginning to increase prices by 10% to 20%, if you haven't noticed.
Right.
This hot market continues to impact truckload carriers who must order new trucks and focus attention on driver recruitment and retention to keep up with customer demands. But here's the other thing, what she's focusing on, brokers. Shippers turn to 3PLs to help out, to bring on new capacity, right? To figure out these situations where they use the different intermediates, whether you're in maritime or you're in air cargo, you look to these forwarders and these intermediaries to help you figure out these plans during these tight capacity times and go past your routing guide and bring on other forms of capacity to move it. Well, that put pressure on those brokers, and those brokers having problems. And the pandemic is just pushing it off the roof, right? And so you've got immense revenue growth for shippers looking for ways to find new capacity, like Echo Global's described in Q1 was best quarter in Echo's history. The gross revenue is up 45.3%. XPO Logistics experienced accelerated growth as well. But in order to achieve these things, like I said, they're looking for these people. So you have this crunch on brokers that are moving, right? And you talked to her about this.
Right, and so the thing that Grace is talking about is that you've got a lot of brokers who, if you're coming into sales, if you're coming into freight brokerage, now is a great time to get in, right?
Yeah.
Like you are in a market where you are needed, you are going to be making high margin, you are going to be making sales because there's freight that needs to get picked up and it needs to move. And Grace is talking about how 3PLs are having a hard time filling those brokerage seats because you've got people who are maybe comfortable on unemployment, or they're not quite ready to commit themselves to this lifestyle that a salesperson needs to necessarily have. And so she was kind of talking about how it is really this shortage in this mid-level hiring of, it's not necessarily just in the driver's seat, it's in managing and navigating those loads and getting them on the road in that broker seat too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a whole bunch of different things that go into this play, right? It's the hot market. It's the recruiting and trying to bring them in, and it's the difference in the different generational and like you said, that it's a different type of sales, right?
Right.
And so there, is it the old grind or is it new and a new type of sales thing? I mean, brokerage is 24/7. That customer calls and you need to move that load. It's do or die. Some of these things. How hot can a pen actually be, or a load of pen? Unbelievably hot. If you've never been a broker, if you were, you understand just how hot this pen can be, or a load of them can be. It's unbelievable. It's life and death situation in some points, you would think.
And when we talk to recruiters about how people entering the workforce, especially in those mid to upper level positions, they're seeking out different things in their company now. They're not going to just settle for the old, here's your benefits, here's your 5 days a week, 9 to 5 schedule. They want something more. They want a company culture. They want to know who they're working for. And Grace made a really good point about how people entering the workforce want to know that your company has a goal behind it. And so in her article, she cites like Flock Freight. They're trying to get full loads on the road, and that's their goal, to increase sustainability and decrease emissions.
Yeah, they're very, very into green initiatives and reducing carbon footprint beyond even the structure of what they do, right? Of combining these loads and eliminating basically empty cube going down the road. Instead of 2 half-full trailers, they're combining them to one. Obviously reduces carbon footprint, but they do things outside of that as well, right? And that, like you said, people want to believe in the company they're working for more and more. And these green initiatives and carbon footprint are very important. The other thing, though, is because I read the article, right? And you should read the article on FreightWaves.com. It's tremendous. I think we're doing a pretty good justice. But Grace Sharkey, she can write, and she's awesome, and she can explain it even better, right? But you also have these people, these kind of legacy brokers, where things are changing towards that model, the different pay model, and they're getting disenchanted and disenfranchised from their customers, and they're not staying in their seats. And they're saying, "Well, I'm going to go do my own thing," right? So it's not just a problem of filling empty seats; it's a problem of keeping people in their seats too. So go give it a read. It's on FreightWaves.com. It's our top story of the day.
Go check it out. And we also have another really good story that just hit the presses from Clarissa Hawes. And you say it all the time. If Clarissa's knocking on your door, it's not necessarily going to be a good day. She's one of our investigative reporters.
If you're an employee, you got to go, huh?
You got to go, dang it.
Uh-oh.
And so she writes that there's a coalition of trucking companies that have filed a petition on Monday, so yes, Monday of this week, to force an Indianapolis-based freight brokerage into Chapter 7 bankruptcy proceedings for unpaid transportation services. So this is an involuntary Chapter 7 bankruptcy petition. So they are forcing this company, CMA Freight Services, LLC, into bankruptcy by claiming that they owe 28 companies nearly $40,000, according to the filing. And Tony Mangini, a legal manager for Alexander Winton and Associates, said that the move was necessary after the freight brokerage failed to pay the petitioners, mostly small business truckers, since October. So they're defaulting on their payments. They're saying, hey, you haven't paid us. We're going to force you into bankruptcy with this. And Chapter 7, involuntary bankruptcy, isn't necessarily something that's really common in the freight industry, right?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I had to ask because I'd never seen anybody forced into it through a Chapter 7. But they do have an attorney, Andy Dittmeyer, general manager of CMA, did tell FreightWaves he claims are against the company's shuttered brokerage facility and not the freight services, which is they're not large, but 9 drivers, 10 power units, which he said is fine. It was the brokerage that did it. Now, I mean, here's the thing: it's over $40,000 that they're trying to put these people in. They're trying to force this on. Their largest creditors are owed $4,800, $3,800, and $2,200. So this is not this massive thing. It's just it is to them who are owed the money, but it's just interesting that a Chapter 7 over $40,000 is being done. So they do have an attorney trying to change this to a Chapter 11 to restructure. So we'll see what happens.
And so they hope that they can convert this Chapter 7 into Chapter 11 bankruptcy at some point in time.
So they can restructure.
And basically, Dittmer said that the attorney's job is to confine the damage to the entity involved, so to CMA Freight Services. And the trucking side, CMA Logistics, is also healthy on its own. So they're really just trying to keep it to that services side and out of their trucking industry. Yeah,
it is. And you know, talk to a lot of people who are out there in, have smaller asset-based and small brokerages. And something to look for in this article really is the fact that and I have no idea the truth of any of this, but Dittmeyer, who owns the CMA, said that this is really due to a rogue agent that he brought on that was not following company procedures and SOPs when it came to customer credit applications and limits, and it overextended. And that's where it basically comes from, is this rogue agent that kind of drove them into bankruptcy there because they weren't that big. So
we talked about that hiring shortage. That just brings it home. You might be short, but make sure that you're still hiring good people to avoid things like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Tom Maiden talks about, he writes about Yellow Corp and their earnings, right?
Tom Maiden or Todd Maiden?
Who did I say?
You said Tom.
Oh, then I typed it wrong.
Todd Maiden. Todd Maiden. He's going to be mad at you if you hear that.
It's Tom's brother, or Todd's brother. No. Anyways, on FreightWaves.com. So he talks about Yellow Corp and surprise, lost money, right? A net loss of $63.3 million or $1.26 per share. The report was well below analysts' expectations, which called for a loss of roughly half of the one the Overland Park, Kansas-based less-than-truckload carrier posted. It was also a reversal from the $4.3 million in net income, or 12 cents per share, the company recorded during the 2020 first quarter, right? So 2020 period included gains on property sales of $39.3 million, while the line item reflected a $1 million loss in most recent quarter. Also, the weather was a $16 million drag on the operating income, according to management. Revenue was up 4.2% year over year to $1.2 billion, as tonnage per day ticked 0.4% higher, and revenue per hundredweight, excluding fuel surcharges, also increased 6.9%. Shipments per day were up 1.7%, and revenue per shipment was up 5.6%, excluding fuel surcharges. However, the headwinds included a 490 basis point increase in purchase transportation expenses as a percentage of revenue, with a swing from a gain to a loss on property disposal being a 350 basis point headwind. One of the few offsets was the salaries, wages, and benefits line, which declined by 220 basis points. But holding the gains on sales line constant year over year. The operating ratio still deteriorated by 140 basis points. I think it was a 102, I believe it was. Was it? Yeah, it was a 102.3 was their operating ratio versus a 97.6. So adjusted EBITDA percent change, negative 61.3%. Now, right, they had quite a bit of money that was given to them through the CARES Act, right? So the company is using the $400 million second tranche. This is a second tranche of its $700 million in the CARES Act loan to update its fleet. They already used $251 million of the tranche to take delivery of new equipment during the fourth and first quarters, but management said it has received the next $130 million from the Treasury, which will allow it to continue buying equipment in the second half. Improving efficiencies, I believe 2,400 tractors, 100 box trucks, 2,500 trailers, and 500 containers. So yeah, they have $550 million of capital expenditures planned to improve their fleet efficiencies, fuel consumptions, et cetera.
So I really wish that Andrew Cox was here to talk about this one today, because I feel like he would have some stuff to say. Because he mentioned on Tuesday that if you took a loss, if you're reporting losses in your Q1 as a carrier, that he was extremely surprised. And obviously you were doing something totally wrong. And so I would be really, really interested to hear what he has to say about this one.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't be that shocked. I mean, Yellow's been struggling for a number of years.
Right.
And there's still that ongoing investigation into why they got this money through the CARES Act to begin with, right? So
I don't know.
It's kind of crazy. But
next up, we've got an article from John Kingston, and he's talking about the changes that the Biden administration has impacted or has enacted around to some of the Trump era definitions of independent contractors. And so the Biden administration has formally withdrawn the Trump administration definition of what an independent contractor is. And that original ruling would have gone into effect later this week. The Department of Labor published a 77-page document reviewing the reasons for its decision while giving a few small clues about what might be in a Biden administration rule defining independent contractors, or at least its approach toward independent contractors. And so this basically impacts anybody who is trying to get aboard a company without necessarily being a full-time employee, right?
yeah, some of the fears, and there was 1,000. They went through the comments, right? Mm-hmm. There was like 1,000 plus comments that went through the comment, and one of the problems, or one of the fears of this, was that it was going to have implications with the AB5 or the ABC test, and reduce the ability to have those contractors, right? Anybody who does any type of work is going to be considered an employee, and really limit that flexibility of the employers. But the Department of Labor said that it's not going to do that, right? So the Trump ruling is being withdrawn. The Department of Labor said, but the Biden Department of Labor is not creating a new test, but is instead leaving in place the current economic realities test, which allows for determinations that some workers are independent contractors, right? So they're not claiming that there are no such thing as independent contractors anymore, or that they're moving that way. Just they're moving this additional language that the Trump had put in there to try and limit that, to make it rule towards they're an independent contractor in any cases where there's an argument. It leaned towards making those outcomes that way versus an employee, right? Benefiting the employer. The interesting thing in this, and you got to go through there to really look at the different of what that test is, right? It's very interesting and intricate. Can't get into it really here and do it justice. But in a slight reveal of where the Department of Labor under the Biden administration might be headed, the review of its actions noted the results of a survey by CWI said that while 45% of the survey's respondents favored being an independent contractor, the same survey finds that 53% of workers prefer being a full-time employee with benefits. It also said the survey showed that the lack of affordable child care was the workers' largest obstacles to full-time employment. These findings suggested that even this minority of workers who prefer being an independent contractor to full-time employment are motivated in part by temporary pressures created by the COVID-10 pandemic, the report said. So employment attorneys are saying they don't really believe that this is the end of it, and they think that there's going to be new rulings expected. So. And
then the interesting thing with that too is the impact on your tax classification, right? So if you are an independent contractor versus a full-time employee, your tax rates change, how much you have to pay at the end of the year changes too. And speaking from experience of 3 years of being an independent contractor, you come around. If you're not saving your money before tax time, then you come around and you get that bill from the IRS and you're like, oh, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
So could that play in also to if they want that classification to stay or go away?
Well, the more savvy ones.
You know.
I mean, people look
I
at
was
it
a
two
college
different
kid.
ways.
I
Right?
didn't know.
You keep your money, hold on to it, invest it, and then pay Uncle Sam at the end of the year, or give it to Uncle Sam to play with, and then maybe get a return at the end. Which
Right.
one is better? I prefer to hold on to my own money for a while and let me use it for a while, and then I'll pay you my bill later.
I'm not a tax professional. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
There's my disclaimer. Don't take tax advice from me.
Don't, me either. But let's get some insight into the freight markets, and I know who exactly to take advice from. The SONAR, or the Sultan of SONAR.
Sultan of SONAR.
Yes,
Zach
Zach Strickland.
Strickland.
Yeah, hey guys. So I'll give you all sorts of opinion on that yellow article if you want it, Kaylee. You know, they got a lot going on, and obviously a lot of those financial metrics that they're sorting and segging there on their end are probably having a bit of a hokey pokey dance as they try to get some of that stuff in alignment, since they did just take a lot of that government money. It's going to put them under a lot of scrutiny moving forward. So I would say that there needs to be somebody looking into some of that line item detail to figure out exactly what's going on over there. I would assume that that has something to do with you know, the reason that they do have a new CEO who I know and work for.
President Daryl Harris.
Yes. Yeah. So,
yeah.
You know, maybe they're having a fresh start there. So,
yeah,
you know, it is kind of unusual considering the amount of freight market activity we've had over the last quarter to see somebody with that kind of situation. But conditions continue to be extremely tight through the United States. We are seeing tender rejection rates bounce back up a little bit. You know, we saw this little retraction there in the first little part of May or at the end of April. Things coming back down a little bit, but not so fast, my friend, as we start to bounce back up. This has to do with the van rejection rate, or van capacity tightening a little bit here as to start the month of May. You see those outbound tender volumes are relatively flat. So demand not changing a whole lot here. We're not seeing these surge of volumes like we saw back there in the middle of February, but it's enough demand to keep the market pretty tight, like a rubber band. You know, looking out into, you know, the market itself. So looking at the national map of the weighted rejection index, see where these things are moving most significantly, where people need to pay attention to, where capacity conditions are changing in combination with volume. So you can see Atlanta, that was kind of our hot market for a long time there. Also Ontario, both had strong end of the month of April. That has since changed, and really it's not too much to be alarmed about if you are operating out of those markets. Capacity has just softened off of, you know, significant bounces. They were very high at the end of April, and now they've come back down. Just a little bit of retraction there. Still seeing rejection rates relatively high in both markets. But the big story is that dark blue market there, especially for the brokers out there that are looking for some tightened capacity, or the shippers that may have found that they didn't necessarily get a lot of compliance here over the last week out of Houston. Houston has been a market where we have seen demand steadily increasing. Outbound tender volumes have been rising slowly throughout the last 2 months, really, and tender rejection rates spiked over the last 3 days. So we've increased from about 19% to over 24% in 3 days. So that is a significant jump. That's basically carriers are just not in the right position out of the Houston market. This is a port market. This is one of those areas like Savannah, Charleston. It's kind of a secondary port of entry. Some of that stuff that comes through the Panama Canal goes into Houston. Really an energy-centric market or port in the past, but I think that we are seeing a little bit of commodity differentiation moving through there now, since the congestion out on the West Coast has persisted for so long. So Houston, definitely the market of the week to watch, especially moving forward into next week.
Yeah, it's agree with you there that the change in the mix of what's coming out of there, the commodity, and the usually bulk and chemical. And now we're talking about containerized freight coming out of that. But question on the weighted tender rejection there. You saw Atlanta and LA, which are your largest. They're fighting for the top spot of market volumes every day, basically, right? They're duking out as number one. Those two down in rejections, right? I mean, and it's relative, right? They're both red, Atlanta a little bit more red, but they're loosening in capacity, yet the national capacity is steady to tightening a little bit over the last 3 or 4 days. Is this a sign of tightness coming as we move into what should be a couple of quick type holiday peak seasons here? And we've got imports as our maritime data specialist Henry Byers would tell you, we're on the verge of a tsunami hitting us with imports.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to the imports, I mean, we're still a fully loaded weapon here, ready for any significant capacity tightening. There's absolutely no reason for anyone to think that, oh, we can take a deep breath and consider that this wave of imports and capacity tightness is over. That's not remotely true. There's no data to support that whatsoever. That Atlanta and Los Angeles, they just had this bump. And keep in mind that that map is measuring weekly changes. It's not over time. This is not looking at year over year, month over month. This is just weekly. This is where you want to look if you are trying to figure out what the short-term situation is. So Atlanta's still seeing rejection rates up over 24%, I believe. And Los Angeles, similarly up over 20%. They just kind of are correcting a little bit. And as you can see on the outbound tender rejection index for the United States, it has not really translated to the national index loosening or lowering.
There we go.
Excellent, Zach. Thank you very much for that. It's going to be an interesting spring. I mean, we've got, like you said, we're a fully loaded weapon. I like to say we're super saturated with all this. A little bit of energy is going to blow everything up. But yeah, very, very interesting. We'll see where things are going there. But one of the things that can help us figure out that is the economy and the numbers in the economy. And
we've got Anthony Smith here.
We do have Anthony Smith, our lead economist.
Thursday, so we should possibly have initial jobless claims. Anthony, is that what we got today?
It is Thursday, and we do have initial jobless claims ready for us indeed. And so we saw that there is a bit of an effect happening right now, and initial claims are indeed coming down. So we saw that the latest numbers show that there was a report of 498,000 individuals that filed for initial claims over the last week. And this is an improvement. Kaylee, I know I'm usually skeptical, but over the last 2 weeks, I've been a lot more understanding and optimistic over jobless claims, and I think we are seeing a substantial decline. We have a long way to go, still a far ways away from that 200,000 that we were seeing before the pandemic, but there is a substantial decline here, and I'm happy to see it.
It's been a couple weeks where we've been talking like 700,000, 600,000, so it's good to see that steady decline. What is causing that decline, and is it going to continue as we open back up fully? You know, New York just announced that in a tri-state partnership with New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, that they're planning on opening up restriction-free as long as people can follow CDC guidelines still. Is that going to help contribute to those jobless claims continuing to go down?
Definitely. I think we're seeing some aggressive vaccine efforts happen right now. And as you mentioned, New York opening back up and other states really kind of releasing some of these restrictions that they had in place are really helping out. We're seeing that there's been a recovery, especially on the services side of the economy for those employment areas, really starting to come back in full effect, hospitality, things like that. Anecdotally, I just got back from the beautiful area of San Diego, and there's a lot of activity there, of course, with social distancing still in place, masks in public areas, and all that good stuff. But there is some opening back up across the nation happening, and happy to see it. And I think this is going to be here to stay.
I just want to take a vacation.
I was going to say, I think your optimism in the last couple of weeks was looking forward to vacation and coming off the high of vacation. But I was going to ask you, I mean, you're obviously a very observant and intelligent man, and I was wondering what your take was in California, what your thoughts were on what was going out there. Are you more bullish because you're out there seeing different parts of the country and seeing the positive nature of the people? Is that kind of hitting you, their sentiment?
I think definitely, I mean, I appreciate that feedback, Michael Vincent, but I think when I'm looking at California, just from my own eyes, I was going in there a little bit skeptical. I was thinking everything's going to be shut down. I don't even know if the beaches are going to be open. What are we even going to do? Is this just going to be a waste of time? And it was a great surprise to me to see that there were people living life, as I mentioned, with masks on, socially distant restaurants, outdoor seating, limited availability indoors as well. So the city was up and running, of course, not at full capacity. And I think there was a little bit of traffic relief from everyone jumping ship from California earlier in the year, and it might be a livable place right now. I don't know how long that's going to last, or if people are going to reverse from Texas and Nashville back to California, but right now it almost seems livable.
There we go.
There we go.
Now we got the real Anthony back.
Love that. Anthony, thank you so much for telling us about your vacation experience. And speaking of vacation experience, we've got more people heading out through airports and people are traveling. Things are opening back up again, as we said.
Yes.
And we've got our FreightWaves air cargo editor, Eric Kulisch, here today to kind of talk about how the air cargo market is responding to those people taking more passenger flights, utilizing that airspace, and honestly congesting airports a little bit more. Eric, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks a lot. I must have been in California at the same time as Anthony on vacation. I was in Palm Springs, so I can report back that the restaurants were doing pretty good business.
Everybody gets a
you
vacation
can't get a
but
more
me.
glowing report than it's almost livable from Anthony. That is very, very high praise from Anthony on anything,
Right,
really. That's
our resident curmudgeon, right?
No, he's not that bad. We tease him, but he's an economist. He's supposed to be skeptical, right?
That's
so
a
when
good
he's
thing.
when he's
Exactly.
positive, I feel really good about it. What's going on in
Yep.
air freight, my friend? Bookings are pouring in. There's not enough planes. What's happening?
Well, it's such a volatile market, and you guys talk so much about what's going on the ocean side, and it's almost replicated with air freight. March saw a little bit of a slump or a lull, but April is the cargo volumes are shooting up. There's quite a big jump in cargo volumes, and 18% up on China to the U.S. And the big problem is that there's just such a lack of capacity. I think, on the transatlantic lanes, its capacity is down 40%. So even though demand's down slightly in the last few weeks, the capacity gap has widened, and the freighters just can't make up the difference. So until we get more international travel going, you're still going to have so much congestion and difficulty shipping by air. And, we're having lots of reports rosy reports about the U.S. domestic market, the Chinese domestic market's doing well. And so these airlines, it sounds like the airline business is coming back, but in reality, that's a very narrow slice, and most of the big cargo that people are interested in and need to move needs to go internationally on those wide body jets. So it's a little deceiving to hear like the optimistic stock reports and the airlines, American and United, talking about, positive return later this year. From an air cargo perspective, there's just not much capacity. IATA, the International Air Transport Association, just came out with their March figures, and, international passenger capacity is still down about 88 or 89%. So until we get those planes going, it's going to be tough. But there are some positive signs. The U.S. and the U.K. are talking about opening up a travel corridor. About 24 countries are talking now about opening up travel restrictions if there's proof of people being vaccinated. So hopefully, that'll start to change over time. But if I could just add one more thing, the scary thing is with this capacity shortage, and load factors are crazy. They're above 70% on China, U.S. to China. I mean, China to the U.S. And even China to Europe. We're talking 95% load factor. So that's basically chock-a-block full aircraft. So people are waiting days to get their bookings on a plane. But the demand is only going to get worse. Get a load of this. We've got perishable season coming up. I'm going to report on that soon. So you're going to have a lot of U.S. exports of cherries and strawberries going out. Good luck finding space. We've got more vaccinations are going to be going by export, because until now, most of it's been domestic production, but now we're going to start feeding the rest of the world. So in the summer, they're expecting vaccination shipments to go up. You've got the pullout from Afghanistan by the U.S. military. It's going to pull some cargo carriers in there to help out from a commercial aspect. You got these airlifts into India for COVID relief supplies. So all these things are just taxing the system.
So let's talk about a little bit about the impact on pricing that tax on the system has. We talk all the time about how if you're trying to ship things over maritime, you're paying premium rates. You cannot get things on a ship for a low cost. Contract rates out the window. Why would you even bother dealing with those right now? Because you're losing money on contract rates. What do rates look like in the air cargo market, and are they just as high as everywhere else?
Yes, rates are shooting up again. On the big like China, Hong Kong to U.S. I think rates are up 8% in the or 60% since March. They're up 150% since comparable time period in 2019, which is what we're using as the realistic benchmark. And so rates are really high. They're high on the Europe to North America, and we're seeing some carriers. A couple of interesting developments. Some carriers are trying to force customers to bump up or trade up and to take a premium, because otherwise it's going to take longer to get on the plane. So if they're really encouraging them, hey, if you want to go faster, take this premium rate to bump up. And then also I'm hearing about some airlines are also flying back light loading. So, it's kind of like what we see in ocean shipping sometimes, or the export, in ocean shipping, they're not taking the export containers because they want to get them, the empty containers back quickly. It's kind of the same thing we're starting to see off of the U.S. Back to China. Get the planes back as quickly as possible, rather than filling them up all the way and then going up to Anchorage, Alaska, refueling, and then coming down. They're like light loading, so some of these planes can fly directly back from the West Coast, straight to China or wherever. So that's kind of an interesting development.
It is unbelievable what is going on there, and you talk about the increase in kind of rosy picture, I guess, domestically that's moving there, but that's not entirely the case when you get the planes on the ground and start trying to move that capacity around. Can we talk about the congestion and some of the things that are happening there in like O'Hare and LAX?
Yeah, so there's some of the ripple effects of all this cargo demand and volume is that some of the major airport gateways are, it's extremely congested. It's been like that off and on since last year, but now it's getting worse again, especially in places like Chicago, Los Angeles, LAX, and even Atlanta, because a lot of the automotive manufacturers in Europe are shipping by air, and Atlanta's getting congested. But Chicago's like really the poster child for bad congestion. These airports just aren't equipped to handle these many, pure freighters. They normally get some freighters, but a lot of the stuff coming in smaller portions in the belly of the planes, and so they can handle a little better. Now it's just coming in a giant tidal wave, and you got shortages of labor because they cut back some of the ground handlers. So they're just overwhelmed, and you're seeing some forwarders even migrate, as I've reported, up the road to Rockford Airport to take a little bit of relief, because they can get super fast service there. The plane's on the ground within 5 minutes. They're at the ramp, and they can have a truck right alongside the plane unloading, and have their stuff out in a couple hours.
Wow.
Very interesting. There's also some new technology that's coming out there. The air industry taking some hints from nature and improving their carbon footprint, et cetera. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think you're referring to Lufthansa Cargo, and they had an interesting announcement this week. They they're going to put like this special film, like a shark skin, basically this clear film on their 10 777 freighters, and it's basically biomimicry. They've analyzed how the water flows over the shark, and makes it more aerodynamic, less friction. So they're going to put this special film on their 777 freighters, and it's going to improve their fuel efficiency and their carbon footprint. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
We were talking about this story on Tuesday, and Michael Vincent, you were talking about how you were kind of surprised that applying that film to just 10 freighters would have such a massive impact. Is that really the case, or is it kind of an overestimation, like a hope for the best, but we'll see what actually happens with how much we can really reduce emissions and costs?
Well, I think Lufthansa said that it was the equivalent of like putting it on those 10 planes would be like taking 48 freighter flights out, as far as
Yeah.
fuel use. So
Right.
over the course of a year, and then I guess over time, if it proves out, they'll add it, maybe to some of their passenger planes, or the idea will spread, and then you'll have more of an impact.
Yeah,
Pretty
I want to
cool.
get it on my car. Is what I want to. I want to get it down to get that.
Yeah, and it could, and then it could also help from, bird droppings, and you could keep it clean. You won't
Yeah,
have to
there you
wax it
go.
as much.
There you go.
Or if you're just driving faster because of your shark skin, then nothing gets on your car at all. It's pretty cool.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
It's
at
like
all.
an impervious boundary. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. People want to catch a little bit more of what you're working on. Obviously, they can go to FreightWaves.com. If they want to send you a story idea, where should they go?
Yeah, at FreightWaves.com or AmericanShipper.com. If you catch one of my stories, at the bottom of there's my bio, and I have my email address in there. Also at Twitter, my handle's at Eric Reports, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
There we go.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric. I say we deep six the word of the day and go with biomimicry.
Biomimicry. I'm
That's a-
a big fan of that.
That's a great. I love that term. Bopus. I learned. I like biomimicry. I'm becoming very intelligent doing this show.
Yes, you are.
In case it hasn't. There's a photo.
So we're talking about air cargo, and let's keep the air cargo plane rolling along, right? We've got Bryan Schreiber, who's the manager of air cargo and business development at Columbus Regional Airport Authority. Bryan, thank you for joining us today. And it's that hot market. Are you seeing pretty much the same thing too?
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for having me on. Yep, I'm here in Columbus, Ohio, and we're serving as a little bit of an overflow for Chicago and other gateways right now. And yeah, our traffic in the first quarter, our international flight arrivals are up 53%, and our international is actually up 20%. And the difference is due to the passenger freighters carrying less freight than the pure freighters, which we're seeing a lot of passenger freighters.
So the increase in flights because they may be full, but they carry less freight, right?
Correct. So you might get 60 tons on a 777-300ER, whereas a 777 freighter you'll get 100 tons on. So it takes a couple of those passenger freighters to equal what a pure freighter would carry.
Interesting. So you also mentioned that Bryan, you guys are getting a lot of overflow from like Chicago, et cetera. Is that why you guys are seeing? It seems like I see a lot of reports where you're getting your inaugural flight from Silkway West hits and so on. Would that be the reason of these new freighters or new lines that are coming into Columbus, into Rickenbacker?
Yeah, that combined with the forwarders are really in the driving seat, and they're trying to find ways to ease the congestion and get around the gateways. So we have a major forwarder on the field that's chartering Silkway, and we've had several of those entries. We have now service from Korean, Qatar, Etihad, Philippine Airlines that we didn't have before the pandemic, and we'll be adding Turkish next week. So yeah, it's really a combination of the forwarders trying to find a better way in and the huge supply chain disruption that's going on in air and ocean for that matter right now.
And so you guys kind of have this reputation for being this like quick clear place, right? So freight comes in, it lands, it gets unloaded, it gets out, and it gets done pretty quickly. Talk to us a little bit about the operations that you guys have at your airport and why it's so speedy to land there and get your freight out so quick.
Yeah, that's our major selling point besides being uncongested. It's fast service, and part of the reason for that is because we actually, as the airport authority, unload the aircraft on the ramp. So we control the ramp, parking spaces, even down to snow removal. Our airfield teams can clear the ramp off right at the time that the plane is landing because we're all one big team. And then we partner with Total Airport Services, Forward Air, Trinity Logistics, RCS Logistics, and some others for the terminal services, which would be the warehouse part. And we have a very good, tight-knit community of people here that are just highly collaborative, and we're all marching to the same beat, and we are all wanting your freight to move quickly off the airport.
So, Brian, yeah, so the hierarchy it's much more flat there, and therefore it's more efficient. I didn't know. That's an excellent question because I had no idea why that was there. I just figured you guys were great. And obviously you are, and you're getting all this overflow that's coming through there. Do you see this pandemic? It has changed so many different things throughout different parts of logistics, right? You got to change it. If your logistics is the same after COVID as it was before, then you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Here you're seeing all these moving from the major gateways to where you guys are. Is this a trend that sustains itself, Brian, and them noticing and figuring out that a place like Rickenbacker that is cargo centric is better than, say, a quasi or hybrid like O'Hare?
I think partly, yes. And we saw this mirrored in the West Coast port strike of 2015, whereby we had an incredible amount of air service come in because of the ocean crunch, and they found Rickenbacker and some of it stuck. So, for instance, Emirates at that time flew a whole bunch of auto parts charters early in the year, and then in midsummer they came in with scheduled service. And I see the same thing happening. A couple of big forwarders fled O'Hare for Rockford just recently, and one of them, who I know them, was quoted as saying that this is not a temporary move. So I think that alternate gateways or secondary gateways are going to become a thing that becomes permanent. Now, some carriers, some forwarders will go back to the gateways when the volumes go down, but I do believe that there'll be some permanent migration.
And so, Brian, I don't know if you heard our air cargo editor, Eric Kulisch, talking a little bit about how the airlines are kind of reporting this false hope in recovery, right? So they're seeing really good spikes and really good recovery back to normal levels as far as domestic travel goes, but international is still really holding off. Are you guys seeing any impacts of that lack in international travel? Is it more you've got domestic shippers taking advantage of this opportunity for them to get in without necessarily having to worry about fighting with those international flights?
Yeah, Eric hit it on the head. This optimism by the airlines in general, and not the cargo portions of the airlines, it's all domestic leisure traffic. So we're not flying from Hong Kong to Dubai to Columbus yet, by and large, and those routes won't come back, and the capacity that goes along with those routes won't until the business traffic comes back, and that could be well into next year. I mean, everybody's at a different level with COVID. You see what's going on in India. I don't see it opening back up internationally soon.
Yeah, no kidding. So you saw, I think, a lot of, I forget the number, I think it might have said 500 or so of converted passenger airplanes coming into your cargo network there at Rickenbacker. Does that pose significant challenges, and is that a hindrance in the future, that going back to like O'Hare, that type of stuff, with that capacity going away?
Some of the airlines that I won't name, at least one of them in particular, has said that the planes that they've converted for passenger freighters will never go back into passenger service. Wow. They've taken the oldest airplanes. Yeah, so we see this as long term, and remains to be seen. It's a very big question on whether they eventually convert those to pure freighters through some conversion program, or they just keep flying freight in the cabin and in the bellies.
And so we already are in a capacity crunch, no matter what your mode of transportation is, right? Like I don't care if you're in air freight, if you're in maritime, whatever, you cannot source capacity. What happens when all of these people decide, oh, we're opening up, we're just gonna start flying, and you take those conversions and you go back to mainly passenger travel? How much tighter can that capacity market get? Do you have an estimation?
I mean, that would open up the capacity if we would go back to international travel. 50% of global air freight before the pandemic flew in the bellies of these passenger planes, particularly the wide-body international ones. So there's a very high nexus between, the global capacity for air freight easing and the business travel or the global long-haul international passenger routes being restored. They're paired together.
Very, very interesting. So, do you see the changes in the commodities that are moving across from coming back from maritime into air cargo? Are you still seeing that type of thing where you're getting different type of heavier type of cargo that normally would go containerized maritime? Are you still seeing that in the air cargo?
Oh, sure. I mean, particularly in the auto industry, that they're living on air freight with things that you would never want to put on a plane. I'm talking gigantic containers of rubber components to make tires that came from overseas that are going to a tire making plant in the U.S. You'd never want to put that stuff on a plane, but they're doing it by necessity to keep the lines open.
Wow,
You
very
know,
interesting.
And we thought that Peloton was crazy just for deciding to ship their bikes by air freight instead of over maritime, just to increase those shipping times or decrease those shipping times. But I mean, if you're an automotive manufacturer and you're saying, hey, I'm going to pay all of this money just to get it on a plane to get it over there, that is kind of crazy as well.
It is. It really is. So the other question that I had really was the difference between like a Rickenbacker and like an O'Hare, right? It fascinates me. The whole air cargo fascinates me. It's the one thing that I really didn't touch operationally. But if O'Hare is seeing less and less international travel, and it's a big international travel type of place, why is it that they can't handle the amount of cargo that is coming in there as additional business if they're not handling all these passengers that they used to? Yet Rickenbacker, who is, you guys are blasted with freight, is handling overflow. Can you speak to the differences there?
I mean, not to speak ill of my counterparts at O'Hare, because I do know my counterpart at O'Hare very well, and it's the volume, it's the pure volume, and it has also been coupled with the COVID outing or sicknesses for the warehouse workers, and a little bit of the labor issue that everybody across the country is having, where they can't get people to come back to work right now.
Gotcha.
They're having enough income at home between the different stimulus and unemployment that they're not coming to work. So I think they have a labor crunch and just an overflow of capacity at O'Hare. And not that we don't have our own labor issues, but we've upped our wages. I mean, the mandate is to keep hiring until we tell you to stop, with some of our partners. So we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve.
There you go. Sounds like they're playing into that strength of recreating what the employee wants and really answering that for this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bryan. I hope that things continue to go well for you guys and keep that freight moving. Columbus, Ohio is a big distribution hub for the U.S. Reaches a significant portion of the population. Thank you so much, my friend. You have a great day. Where can people quickly reach out and find more about Rickenbacker?
Sure. Our website is rickenbackeradvantage.com, and you can also look us up on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we're pretty regular on Twitter and LinkedIn with new things. We'll probably put something up next week and maybe the week after as well.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you so much, Bryan.
Columbus, Ohio, the home of your alma mater?
Mercyhurst University.
Oh, man. I thought you went to Ohio State.
No.
A guy can dream, right?
But so let's check in with the weather. That always affects air travel as well and freight as well. So, Nick, what's going on?
You bet. There's actually a couple international airports where there might be just some minor delays in air cargo today. We could see a few storms popping up. So we're going to go right to the Sonar Critical Events map, the radar, and we'll show you where those two airports are located. The first is around the Memphis International Airport, and also up into parts of southern Illinois, the Missouri Boot Hill. We could see just a few severe storms popping up this afternoon or this evening, and the other areas down in Florida in the Orlando metro area. So Orlando International Airport will be another spot to watch. Again, no major outbreaks here, but a few severe storms and also just garden variety thunderstorms popping up. So there could be minor delays with air cargo, and of course maybe surface transportation here and there on the roads for drivers. Now, the threat for severe weather will shift a little bit back to the plains with the new frontal system moving through the central and southern plains tomorrow, and then the risk may be a little bit higher on Saturday, but nothing like what we've seen in the past few days across the south. It's not going to be a big widespread outbreak, but there'll be some severe storms popping up in the plains here and there. So we'll watch out in Wichita and maybe some areas of Kansas and Missouri as well for those storms popping up tomorrow and into Friday. Luckily, nothing else major across the country. So overall, I think freight flows are going to be okay. Not going to be any major widespread late season snowstorms or hurricanes, nothing like that coming. So there shouldn't be many problems for drivers out there on the roads. That's the good news.
Awesome.
But there is one thing I want to mention though, because now, Kaylee, you know all about this, but Michael, Vincent, how much do you know about Doppler radar? You hear it on TV weather all the time. meteorologists talking about Doppler weather. So if you want to know all about it, how it works, how it started, when it started, the history behind it, there's an article up on the website, freightwaves.com right now, where you can learn all about Doppler radar and how it helps meteorologists track severe weather and help protect lives.
Awesome, Nick. And that's an Ask Waves segment, right? You did that as part of our revamped Ask Waves story segments?
That's right. Yeah, it's part of Ask Waves. So you can go to freightwaves.com, just search for Ask Waves, or you can search my name. Any of those will work. So, but yeah, it's part of that series called Ask Waves, where there's all kinds of great information in there. So this is one of the latest articles that's up there.
It's great. I learn something almost every week from Ask Waves, and it's honestly like the most basic question that you have if you're brand new to freight and you don't know what's going on. Go search that up, because it's going to be pretty great. You'll get some good information out of it.
It is, and it's a really good tool and a good service, really, because when you're in it for a long time, you start to think of all these acronyms and you don't realize that people don't understand
it.
Yeah.
So we brought the news to you guys at the beginning of the show that this is our last one. Should we talk to the people a little bit about what's coming next?
Sure. FreightWaves Now
FreightWaves Now
is coming starting Monday.
Starting Monday.
Right.
So we are revamping our FreightWaves Now. Again, going through lots of revamps here. But starting Monday, that's May 10th, we will be bringing you guys a 1-hour morning show, 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to be kind of a combination of all of our shows together, right? More a little bit newsy focused. We'll have headlines. We'll talk in depth about our top stories of the day that's on freightwaves.com.
That's right.
We will have some feature guests, some feature content, really exciting stuff coming starting next
so
week.
FreightWaves Now was like a 10-minute, quick 10-minute, 15-minute thing every day that we used to do, and that 15-minute segment there where we did the carrier update, the shipper update, and the broker updates, those will be incorporated into the new show along with the headlines and interviews of guests and the top stories of the day and weather. So yeah, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Yep, and you'll get sneak peeks of the shows that are coming up on later in the day. So whether that's me talking about At Your Doorstep, Andrew Cox talking about Point of Sale, Kevin Hill talking illustriously about Put That Coffee Down. Illustriously, it's a good word of the day.
I like that. Yeah, and Banff is coming up.
Yes, are you excited about that one?
May 17th, Mondays at 2 o'clock. Yeah, Banff.
Benchmarking, analysis, monitoring, and forecasting.
Yeah, excellent.
Got
yes, that is the acronym BAMF. Myself, Zach Strickland, and Kyle Lintner will be hosting that show. So we'll be talking about the freight markets, what has the previous week, and what is going on currently, and forecasting into the upcoming week every Monday at 2 o'clock.
If you really want to elevate your knowledge of the freight markets, definitely tune into that show, because it's going to be something that you can't glean out of those 4 to 5 minute carrier broker updates. It's going to be way in depth, way great to talk about, and just once again,
you don't have to worry about asking the dumb questions, because I'll be doing it.
What else do we have coming up? What's coming up on What the Truck tomorrow?
Oh, wow. What do we got coming up tomorrow? So we had What the Truck noon tomorrow, right? We're going to be talking about how to service a marijuana business and mitigate risk. So we've got Colin Landforce, COO at Unrivaled. We've got Rick Bridges and Glenn Patton at Roanoke Trade. Trey Griggs will be with us again. Maybe he's going to beatbox for us again. I don't know. Vice President at Lean Sales. Always interesting when Trey jumps in. We had him on XM radio once, and he was driving, and we just asked him to belt out a song, and he did it. He did. Yeah, it was
amazing.
Just right there. Yeah, so he's not. And Alan Adler, Detroit Bureau Chief. He's. I bet he's talking about SPACs. I don't know. There's been a lot of rumor mills that are going around with SPACs and autonomous software, like Plus, et cetera. So.
And we're taking a little bit of a break from events. It feels like we had like back-to-back events, right? But our next one coming up here that third week of May 19th through 20th, it's our FreightWaves Live at Home. And we're going to have 2 days of good interviews, really heavy on the tech focus on this one this time.
Oh yeah, well yeah, FreightWaves Live started in Atlanta live, right? And now it's at home as of last year, and it's the one where you've got 20 or so demos, the rapid fire demos, the 7-minute rapid fire demos are always excellent. All the new tech, all the new wares that are coming out, 2 days chock full of what's coming, what's new, the newest stuff. So yeah, definitely check that out. That is, when is that again? Thursday, May 19th
And
through
Friday
the
the
20th.
20th.
And Friday the 20th, yeah. And then right after that, well, not right after that, but June 9th is the Owner-Operator Summit, which will be a good one. And then we have the Cybersecurity Summit, which is June 23rd, which rears its ugly head all the time. Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
Man.
Lots of people dealing with cybersecurity issues, so get into that. And
They
then
are.
last but definitely not least, talking about the future of Freight Festival.
That is F3, the Coachella, the South by Southwest, right? The Festival of
great.
Freight, the Coachella of Freight. So that's November 8th through the 10th in Chattanooga. It's going to be excellent. We'll see you there.
And signing off for the last time. See you guys.